At the center of the conflict is John Deere, the iconic farm equipment giant whose business practices have ignited a rebellion spanning borders, industries, and dinner tables.
Tractors shut off, fields abandoned, over 1.7 million acres of farmland silent. 1 hour ago, American farmers across states like Iowa, Kansas, and Nebraska stopped everything. Not because they wanted to, but because they were done being pushed around by unfair tariffs, blocked borders, and tractors they couldn't even fix without begging a corporate dealer. And just like that, the food supply chain cracked. But what happens when the people who grow our food say they've had enough?
We may switch to more corn, dry land acres, just knowing there's usually always a market for corn.
So you may grow corn instead of milo?
More corn than milo, yes.
Since USAID's Food for Peace program has been suspended.
Earlier today in Pennsylvania, Trump stood in front of a crowd and delivered what some are calling the boldest part of his economic agenda yet. He looked right at the camera and said if John Deere moves more of its production to Mexico, he's slapping them with a 200% tariff on everything they try to sell back into the US. That kind of threat isn't just political theater. It's a shot fired straight into the heart of American agriculture. Trump's message was all about protecting American manufacturing, but the farmers who heard it weren't cheering. They were worried, because for them, this isn't just about politics or trade wars. It's about survival. Farmers are already battling high costs, unpredictable weather, and low market prices. Adding a tariff war on top of that, it's like setting the barn on fire when there's already a drought. John Deere, a name that's practically sacred in farming circles, had quietly announced plans to shift a chunk of their manufacturing down to Mexico. Why? Cheaper labor, of course. On paper, that might look good for corporate profits, but on the ground, it hits different. Imagine being a farmer who's depended on John Deere for decades, only to find out your equipment will now be made across the border, and any issue you have will probably take even longer to fix and cost even more. It wasn't just about geography, it felt like betrayal. Farmers who spent hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions, on John Deere equipment saw the move as the company turning its back on them in the middle of a crisis. And then, Trump came in with the gasoline. Just 3 weeks ago, things escalated in a way nobody saw coming. All the Mexico-US border crossings, specifically Laredo and Nogales, over 140 pieces of John Deere machinery were stopped cold. Tractors, harvesters, all kinds of critical farming equipment sat in the scorching sun, unable to move. On the other side of the fence, farmers like Eduardo Vasquez in Sinaloa stood helplessly, staring at thousands of acres of land they couldn't even touch. Eduardo had prepaid for his tractor. It was less than 10 meters away, but it might as well have been on the moon.
Especially when we have people in the world that are hungry.
So while this program is paused, what are you doing?
Well, right now I'm turning over every rock I can.
Mexican customs officials claimed they were just performing enhanced inspections, but everyone in the farming world knew this wasn't about safety standards. This was about sending a message. It was a calculated strike, and it landed perfectly. While Deere equipment got stuck, other brands like Kubota and Case IH breezed through the checkpoints. Coincidence? I think not. Mexico was using its leverage. The planting season was right around the corner, and without that machinery, fields were going to sit empty. For the farmers, it wasn't just about business, it was about food, livelihoods, and entire communities. The move shook Deere's logistics team to the core. They scrambled to respond while Mexican officials gave vague statements that didn't explain much. The blockade wasn't random. It was the result of years of growing frustration. Farmers tired of being locked out of repairing their own equipment, tired of high costs, and tired of being ignored. That was the tipping point, and Mexico knew it. This fight isn't just about Trump's tariffs or some border standoff. It's way deeper than that. At the center of all of its control, specifically how John Deere has quietly built a system where farmers can't even fix their own tractors anymore. And that's the part that really stings. So picture this. You spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on a tractor. It's planting season, and time is everything. But then, something goes wrong. A sensor fails, or the software glitches. You know exactly what the problem is. You could fix it in minutes if it were any other machine. But you can't, because John Deere locks their software. That means you can't access the diagnostics, and you definitely can't do the repair yourself. Even the most basic of fixes like replacing a $60 sensor requires calling a certified John Deere technician. And that simple job, it turns into a $500 service call. You have to wait hours, sometimes even days, for someone to show up, plug in a laptop, press a few buttons, and leave. Meanwhile, your crops are dying in the field. That delay can mean thousands in losses. And this isn't a rare problem. It's happening every single day. Here's the kicker. It wasn't some accident or oversight. Leaked internal documents from Deere made it painfully clear. This was by design. The company engineered its equipment and software in a way that keeps farmers dependent on their service network. not because it's better for the machines, but because it makes them more money. The service side of their business has quietly become a cash cow. While farmers are busy trying to survive, Deere was building a digital fence around its equipment, locking the gates, and charging for the key.
USAID is definitely appreciated.
Yeah, Luis, how would you say that the Food for Aid program has benefited you?
At some point, people snap. And across the Midwest, that's exactly what's happening. From Iowa to Kansas, farmers are fed up, and they're starting to push back. In Nebraska, entire co-ops backed out of $40 million worth of deals with John Deere. These aren't small-time operations. They're big, organized groups that have bought John Deere for decades. Walking away from that kind of deal? That's a statement. Online, forums are buzzing, farmers are swapping advice, sharing hacking tools, and writing detailed guides on how to bypass Deere's lockdown software. Some people are calling it a rebellion, others just call it survival. Either way, it's spreading. In Mexico, over 1.7 million acres are sitting unplanted because of all this chaos. And in the US, some farmers are walking off their land completely. They're tired of being squeezed from every angle by rising costs, supply chain delays, bad weather, and now, the very companies they've trusted for generations. People are watching this unfold in disbelief. Most folks have no idea how much control a company like John Deere can have over somebody's life. But for the farmers who live it every single day, this fight is personal. It's not about politics anymore. It's about freedom, fairness, and the right to do their job without a corporation standing in their way. At first, people didn't get it. I mean, it's planting season. Why would farmers just walk away from their fields? Most folks in cities or suburbs don't exactly track tractor brands or follow farm news. So when tractors stopped running and fields stayed empty, it felt random, confusing. But once the full story came out, everything changed. Social media started blowing up. Posts from real farmers, tired, sunburned, and frustrated, began explaining what was really going on.
For more than 70 years, the U.S. government has purchased surplus grains from American farmers and sent them overseas to feed hungry communities from Africa and Asia to South America and Ukraine. The program is called Food for Peace.
They weren't lazy people quitting their jobs. These were families pushed to the edge. Tractors that couldn't be fixed without a $500 service call. Fields left untouched because the equipment was stuck in border limbo. A system built to trap them instead of help them. Hashtags like Right to Repair and Farmer Freedom started trending. Videos of farmers breaking down emotionally or showing their idle machines went viral, and people listened. Even folks who'd never touched a shovel started understanding how deep this went. Suddenly, this wasn't just a farm issue. It was about fairness, about control, about everyday people being held hostage by big corporations. The American Farm Bureau, which represents over 6 million farming families, finally broke its silence. This was a big deal. These guys don't usually get involved in public fights, but this time, they stood with the farmers, and their message was clear. This wasn't just a bump in the road. This was a breaking point. The ripple effect hit fast. Grocery chains started sounding alarms. Tomatoes, peppers, and avocados, staples in so many homes, were suddenly short supply. Trucks weren't moving, produce wasn't being picked, crops weren't even being planted in the first place. And when that happens, prices go crazy. Some stores have already doubled their prices on certain vegetables. And it's not just produce. This disruption touches everything from tortillas to salsa to fresh salads. So what are your thoughts on this? Let us know in the comments below.